They are beginning to understand something that once seemed impossible to them. You did not walk away because you stopped loving them. You stepped away because you finally started loving yourself enough to stop accepting less than you deserved. That realization is difficult for them to face. If you had left in anger, they could have blamed the argument. If you had left after a dramatic fight, they could have convinced themselves that emotions got the best of you. But that is not what happened. You left quietly. You left with dignity. You left with self-respect. That kind of departure leaves no easy excuse behind. Now they are forced to look at the truth. The truth is that you did not need them in order to survive. You cared deeply, but your entire life was never dependent on them. Few things are more unsettling than watching someone you took for granted continue moving forward without you. Every day that passes reminds them of this reality. They see that you are still standing. They see that you are still growing. They see that your world did not end when the connection changed. And that creates questions they cannot ignore. Now they are wondering what happened. They are wondering why you stopped reaching out. They are wondering why your energy feels different. They are wondering if they still matter to you the way they once did. These questions do not leave them alone. At first, they may try small things. A simple message, a casual reaction to something online, a brief attempt to reconnect without addressing the deeper issues. They are testing the situation. They want to know if the same access still exists. They want to know if they can return without doing the inner work. They want to know if everything can go back to the way it was. This is why your strength matters now more than ever. If you immediately return to old habits, nothing changes. The pattern simply repeats itself. But when you remain grounded in your self-respect, something important happens. They are left alone with their own thoughts. Most people avoid that place whenever possible. It is much easier to stay distracted than to face uncomfortable truths. But distractions eventually lose their power. Sooner or later, the mind becomes quiet enough to hear what it has been trying to avoid. That is where they are now. They are beginning to notice their own patterns. They are starting to see the decisions they postponed. They are recognizing the conversations they avoided. They are remembering the moments when they could have chosen differently. These are not pleasant realizations. Growth rarely begins with comfort. Growth begins when someone can no longer escape the truth. That is why the energy around this situation feels so intense. You may find yourself thinking about them unexpectedly. Old memories may appear out of nowhere. Certain moments may return to your mind without warning. That does not automatically mean you should go back. It simply means the connection mattered. When two people share something meaningful, the ending of that chapter creates emotional waves. Those waves take time to settle. Allow them to settle. You do not need to act on every feeling. You do not need to chase every memory. You do not need to rescue someone from lessons they must learn themselves. Right now, you are becoming someone different. You are becoming the person who chooses dignity over desperation. You are becoming the person who understands that another person's growth is not your responsibility. You can love someone and still allow them to face the consequences of their choices. You can care about someone and still maintain boundaries. You can wish them well and still move forward. This understanding changes everything. The truth is that you did not create this situation through manipulation. You did not play games. You did not use silence as a weapon. You simply stopped pouring endless energy into something that was not giving back. Imagine trying to fill a cup that has a crack running through the bottom. At first you keep pouring, then you pour more, then you pour even faster. But eventually you realize the problem is not the amount of water. The problem is the crack. For a long time, you kept giving your love, your patience, your understanding, and your effort. Now you have stopped, and suddenly they feel the loss. Now they notice what was missing. Now they understand the value of what they had. Meanwhile, something beautiful is happening inside you. You are becoming stronger and softer at the same time. Many people think strength means building walls. It does not. Real strength is remaining open while refusing to abandon yourself. Real strength is knowing your worth without needing constant validation. Real strength is walking away from what hurts you without becoming bitter. You are not chasing anymore. You are not begging anymore. You are not shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone anymore. That version of you is gone. And once someone discovers their value, it becomes very difficult to return to old patterns. Even if this person returns someday, you will not be the same person they left behind. You have learned too much. You have seen too much. You have grown too much. The old version of you was willing to carry the entire relationship alone. The new version understands that healthy love requires two people showing up equally. That lesson stays with you forever. Right now, life may feel quieter than before. At times, that quiet may even feel lonely. But there is a difference between loneliness and peace. Loneliness comes from feeling disconnected from yourself. Peace comes from finally returning to yourself. You are learning the difference. For so long, your thoughts may have been filled with worry. You worried about what they felt. You worried about what they wanted. You worried about where things were going. Now there is space where that anxiety used to live. At first, that space feels unfamiliar. But eventually it becomes freedom. Eventually, it becomes clarity. Eventually, it becomes confidence. You begin waking up without needing answers from someone else. You begin trusting your own judgment. You begin recognizing your own value. And that changes every relationship that comes after this one. The connection changed you. There is no denying that. The experiences you shared mattered. The emotions were real. The lessons were real. But not every meaningful connection is meant to last forever. Some people enter your life to teach you something important about yourself. Some people help you discover strengths you never knew you had. Some people reveal wounds that need healing. Some people awaken parts of you that were sleeping. Then the chapter ends. Not because it failed, but because it completed its purpose. Acceptance of this truth creates freedom. When you stop waiting, you begin living again. When you stop chasing, you begin growing again. When you stop looking backward, you finally see what is waiting ahead. And that is exactly where you are now. You are no longer standing still. You are moving forward. Whether they grow or stay the same is no longer the center of your story. Their journey belongs to them. Your journey belongs to you. That is the lesson. That is the transformation. You are no longer asking whether you are enough for someone's love. You are asking whether a love is healthy enough for your life. That single shift changes everything. You stop accepting excuses. You stop settling for confusion. You stop believing that love must be painful in order to be meaningful. You begin choosing peace. You begin choosing truth. Most importantly, you begin choosing yourself. And that choice is the reason everything feels different now. Because the moment you chose yourself, the entire situation changed. The moment you stopped chasing, they started noticing. The moment you stepped back, they started looking closer. The moment you found your own strength, they felt the absence of everything you once gave freely. And whether they realize it today, tomorrow, or months from now, one truth remains. You were never difficult to love. You were never asking for too much. You were simply asking for what should have been given naturally. Now the future belongs to whoever is ready to meet you there, and this time, you will not have to convince anyone of your worth. They will see it from the very beginning. They think about your old conversations because they are trying to find their way back to something they cannot replace. Every memory feels different now. Words they barely noticed before suddenly seem important. Small moments they once overlooked now return to their mind again and again. They remember things you said that made them feel understood. They remember the way you listened without judgment. They remember how you stayed patient even when they were difficult to understand themselves. At first, they thought these memories would fade. They believed time would make everything easier. Instead, the opposite happened. The more time passed, the more clearly they began to see what was really there. This is the strange thing about losing someone who genuinely cared. Their value often becomes most visible in their absence. What once felt ordinary suddenly becomes rare. What once felt guaranteed suddenly becomes precious. Now they find themselves noticing reminders of you everywhere. A song, a place, a familiar phrase. Even simple moments can bring your memory back into focus. They are beginning to understand that what made your connection special was not excitement alone. It was the feeling of safety. It was the feeling of being accepted. It was knowing someone cared without constantly asking for something in return. That realization is changing them. The person who once believed they had unlimited time is starting to understand that time is not guaranteed. The person who assumed you would always be there is learning what it feels like when someone chooses themselves instead. And that lesson is not easy. There are moments when they try to convince themselves they are fine. They tell themselves they have moved on. They tell themselves everything happened for a reason. They tell themselves they do not miss you. But deep down, another truth keeps rising to the surface. They miss your energy. They miss your presence. They miss the way life felt when you were part of it. Most of all, they miss the version of themselves that existed when they felt genuinely loved. This is why their thoughts keep returning to you. It is not just about romance. It is not just about attraction. It is about recognition. You saw something inside them that they rarely showed anyone else. You saw strengths they doubted. You saw fears they tried to hide. You saw potential they often ignored. When you stepped back, they lost access to that reflection. Now they are standing alone with their own thoughts. For the first time in a long time, they cannot escape them. That is why this experience feels so intense. People often believe obsession begins because someone is constantly chasing another person. But many times, it begins when the chasing stops. It begins when silence creates space for reflection. That space is where truth becomes impossible to avoid. Every unanswered question grows louder. Every missed opportunity becomes more obvious. Every moment they took for granted returns with greater clarity. And while this is happening, something important is happening inside you as well. You are learning that your worth does not depend on who chooses you. You are learning that your value does not increase when someone finally notices it. Your value was always there. The difference is that now you see it too. That is the transformation they never expected. They expected you to wait. They expected you to keep reaching out. They expected you to keep proving your loyalty. Instead, you started investing that energy into yourself. You started healing. You started growing. You started remembering your own importance. That change is powerful because it cannot be faked. People can pretend to be confident. People can pretend to be independent. But genuine self-respect feels different. It creates a quiet strength that others immediately notice. And that is exactly what they are noticing now. They can feel that something about you has changed, even if you have not spoken in weeks or months, even if they only see small signs from a distance. They can sense it. You are no longer standing in the same place emotionally. You are moving forward. That realization creates fear inside them. Not because they want to control you, not because they necessarily understand all their feelings, but because they are finally realizing that life continues with or without their decision. For a long time, they believed they could choose later. Now they are beginning to understand that later is not always available. That awareness creates urgency. It creates reflection. It creates regret. And sometimes it creates growth. The question is not whether they are thinking about you. The question is whether those thoughts will inspire real change. That is something only they can decide. No amount of love can do another person's inner work for them. No amount of patience can force someone to grow. No amount of sacrifice can make someone ready before they choose readiness for themselves. This is why your role is not to rescue them. Your role is not to carry their emotional lessons. Your role is not to abandon your own progress just because they are finally feeling what you felt long ago. Your role is to continue becoming the person you were always meant to be. If they return, let it be because they have learned something valuable. Let it be because they are prepared to meet you differently. Let it be because they are ready to choose with clarity instead of confusion. Anything less will only repeat the same story. And you have already lived that chapter. You do not need to live it again. The universe often works in ways people do not expect. Sometimes growth happens through connection. Sometimes growth happens through distance. Sometimes people only recognize love after they have experienced its absence. Whether they come back or not, one truth remains unchanged. You did not lose your value when they failed to recognize it. You did not become less important because someone was not ready. You did not become harder to love. The right people will never need endless reminders of your worth. They will see it. They will appreciate it. They will protect it. And they will choose it. Until then, keep moving forward. Keep honoring your growth. Keep trusting the lessons this experience has taught you. Because the real reason someone is deeply in love with you right now is not because you chased them. It is because you finally remembered who you are. And once a person remembers their own value, everything changes, including the way others see them.